It's a Terrifier Christmas. Let horror fill your heart. You hear footsteps, that's not Santa. It's a jolly clown named Art. He's a Miles County legend with a smile that brings a chill. On a journey to outdo himself and top his latest kill. He'll melt your face with acid, restore you clean in half. He'll peel the flesh right off.
Hello, everybody.
Hola, buenas a todos los que habéis encontrado un ratillo entre tanta peli para venir a ver a cuatro de los grandes artífices de Terrifier. Aquí tengo a Samantha Scafidi, nada más y nada menos que Victoria Hayes.
Hola.
Luego tenemos a, que la tercera parte, si la habéis visto, cuidado, mucho cuidado. Luego tenemos a Damien Leone, director The Crazy Mind That Has Made Possible Terrifier Saga. Luego tenemos a David Howard Thornton, el mismísimo Art the Clown, que aquí he visto gente con las gafas, que las saquéis. He visto a gente con las gafas de Art the Clown por aquí. Mira. Look. And Olga Turka, diseñadora de producción y de vestuario, que I want to answer later about the Clown Café. Because you know what this place is, no? And you make it, I think. Okay. And for Art the Clown. Pues vamos a mirar el tráiler primero y luego yo haré un par de preguntas. ¿Queréis preguntarles cosas, no? ¿Sí o no? Pues yo voy a hacer un par de preguntas para romper el hielo y luego ya preguntaréis vosotros. Y será en inglés para que dure todo lo máximo posible, ¿vale? Para que no estemos traduciendo y perdamos oportunidad de hacer preguntas. Pues let's see the trailer of Terrifier 3, please.
You survived the most famous serial killer since Jack the Ripper. The 5-year anniversary is coming up. I think a lot of people would really like to hear from you after all this time. I want to know what it's like to be in the presence of that kind of evil. What goes through your brain when he's close enough to you and feel his breath. I saw him today.
Who? How can you be sure it was really him?
I could feel it.
Who is this Santa? He's scaring my kid.
Yeah, he's scaring me too.
Hey, Santa's handing out presents!
Why would he come back here? Even if he was alive, which he isn't. Wouldn't you want to get as far away from here as possible, as far away from you?
We both know this isn't over. I have to go back to the Terrifier.
It's still buried there, isn't it?
It might be the only thing that could stop them. Looking forward to the best Christmas ever, filled with fun, smiles, and laughter.
Okay, this will be a talk about the makeup effects. So the first one question I want to ask you for the four, because your four are involved in this crazy concept that is Terrifier and the scenes with crazy special makeup effects. How is the concept of having the idea in the paper, in the brain, and make it happen in the set? How is all the process with the actors, with the production designer, with the dress? How is the process? Because I think it's not easy to do it.
The first movie, I knew I wanted to create something really disgusting and new and fresh that was going to stand out, even for me as a makeup effects artist, something that I'd never seen in a slasher movie before. So I was investigating medieval torture methods, and I came across this method of hanging people upside down and cutting them in half. And that sounded repulsive, and it sounded like it could be a really challenging, cool makeup effect. So I wrote that in the script, and when everybody read the script, that's what jumped out at them. It wasn't really Art the Clown, because he doesn't really work as well on the page, especially when I wrote the first one, until David plays him, you know, and you see that character come to life. So everybody just said, how are you going to do that? Are you going to show all of that, or is that going to be more off-screen? You know, even David said, you're not going to show that, right? And I was like, oh, I'm going to show every bit of that, everything you could possibly imagine. So then it just becomes a matter of how much are we going to show? How much money do we have to build this prosthetic? It was basically turned into a full-body replica of Catherine Corcoran, who plays the character Dawn. So she had to stay in that position that you see in the film on a board, and we molded her body from the neck down, and then I molded her head separately so we can piece them together. And then we filled the insides with foam and real intestines and things you find in the supermarket. Good, nasty goodies. And then we did like a back half that was just like from the midsection of the back to the thighs, for when you see the hacksaw going through her butt. And then something else, maybe just like another torso, because they all did different things. Like they had different pumps, blood pumps in them. Everything's a piece of a puzzle. And we also tried to use as much of Catherine as we possibly could before we had to cut away to a complete dummy. So we were putting prosthetics down her chest. We were just pumping blood out of weapons that were, didn't have the front of the hacksaw, so it looks like it was in her body. So all those pieces of the puzzle that create the illusion. In part two, it was, how do we now surpass that effect? Because everybody would come up to David and I at conventions and say, what are you going to do next? How are you going to surpass that? Is it going to be gross? Is it going to be worse? So I didn't quite know where I was going to go, and one day I was flipping through a book about Jack the Ripper, and I saw a actual crime scene photograph of one of his victims. Horrible image of this woman mutilated on a bed. That disturbed me, and I said, if that's going to disturb me, it's probably going to disturb the audience. So what if Art the Clown was responsible for that? And in my head, I just started reverse engineering that image and saying, what would he do to this poor victim for her to end up like that? And it became a question of, I basically wrote down on a piece of paper the 10 worst things I could imagine doing to somebody. And then me and my producer, Phil, who was my makeup assistant at the time, we just said, all right, let's pick 5 of these and spend months creating these effects to the best of our ability. And so that's 2 examples of how these things come to life from page to screen.
Well, my experience is probably a little bit better than Samantha's over here. Just a little bit. Mine is just one prosthetic glued to my face. It was originally made of gelatin? And now it's a foam latex mask that's actually molded to my face. For the first 2 films, I was using the mask that was molded to the original Art the Clown, Mike Gianelli's face, so it didn't quite fit me as well. So this new film, it looks a lot better, a lot sharper on me, and it holds up a lot better, and it also allows for even more free range of movement and expression. So I'm able to emote a lot more with my face in this one, and it's to me, it's pretty easy. I forget I'm wearing it because the foam latex is very light and it's very thin. And so it's almost like skin. So I sometimes forget I'm wearing my makeup, and I'll sometimes surprise myself in the mirror, and I'm like, oh, God, that's me. I'm okay. So I really haven't had as much problems as I have in other makeup jobs I've had recently in some other films. So this was more enjoyable in that regard. The worst part for me was just the contacts, but that's because my eyes just don't like something in my eyes after a while. So I'm just like, get these out, or just give me some moisture. So, but Sam's had it much worse.
Yeah, I couldn't see. And the second, and that was like 2 hours it would take, but it was just a face prosthetic. And then in the third, it's more extensive. It's legs, it's arms, it's one eye, but then I would have a pop-in eye. So when I would be filming with, Lauren or David, I would be looking through, but it was basically like looking through a straw. So I'm like legally blind while I'm acting. And so there'd be moments where I'm trying to, like, if Dave was here, I would be looking at him, but Damon would be like, cheat to camera. So I would do the scene to like the wall. But yeah, my process was 6 to 8 hours in a chair, and I like to move around a lot, and and it is grueling. But once you get into the prosthetic and you're in the scene, you do forget, and it does a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of the acting, because it's like wearing a leather jacket. You kind of put it on and you feel cool, and there's just like this movement that you embody and this energy. And so whenever I would put the prosthetic on and I'd be in a scene, it would just all of a sudden Vicky would come to life. So yeah.
You also had she has these elaborate dentures that are very uncomfortable, and she's got a lot of dialogue, and they have gums built into them that distort her mouth and push her upper lip all the way up very far, so it looks like she's missing a portion of her face, but it's just an illusion, but it's very uncomfortable, and then the mask gets glued into that, so her face is kind of locked into that position for, I don't know, 10 hours or so.
10 hours?
More, yeah. You wish.
Like but more on the teeth. It was funny because I had a lot of dialogue, and there's no way you can't lisp. So I would say things, and I'd be lisping like this because I couldn't open my mouth because it was so tight. But I would be acting, and all of a sudden I would be in a scene and get really aggressive, and I'd bite the teeth and they would break. So it was like a process of like, I was almost swallowing the teeth, and but it was brutal.
And as costume and production designer, my responsibility is all the aesthetics of the film. But when I read the script, I'm like, oh my God. With costumes, I have to know for each character how many copies from head to toe of each costume we need. Because sometimes the blood doesn't wash out. We don't film in sequence, so we just have to know just how many, like say Art the Clown, the black and white outfit. I think we had about 12 in this film. And for the production design, there's often times we're filming in homes that we have to protect from blood sprays and blood pools, and we're not always 100% great with that because there's so many variables. So there's a lot of anticipation of what could go wrong in these incredible scenes.
Are the clowns learn how is to make these crazy spaces?
It's the best, the best canvas I could ever ask for. But everything is sort of Damien's baby, but we collaborate together on every little thing.
Yeah, you bring in a lot of the details and the finesse, and really brings it to life. I always have an idea of where pretty much the direction I want it to go in, other than designing Art's costume. I don't really have an eye for that. She's fantastic, especially with Sienna's wardrobe in 3, which we wanted to, because in part 2, she has this really fantastical outfit, this beautiful comic bookish Valkyrie costume. And in this one, I wanted her to be much more normal clothing in this one, but we didn't want to lose that essence of who she was and that character. So Olga, had just like the beautiful idea of incorporating like the colors of her armor and those the browns and the golds into her jacket, into her pants, so you just don't lose that flavor of Sienna. So it's wonderful things like that you might not even be conscious of when you're watching the movie, but when you go back and you know that, you notice it and you see her essence there.
Carlos. No, ahora te vendrá un micro.
Sí. Bueno, para una saga que su característica principal es la casquería, principalmente, y es lo que ha conseguido que tenga este éxito, que quería saber si alguna vez le han llamado la atención o ha tenido que censurar, o él mismo se ha tenido que autocensurar, porque es la base del éxito de la saga, ¿no?
I do censor myself to a degree, or at least when I'm writing something, I always imagine how much worse it could be, or sometimes I'll write something that's 3 steps further than where you wind up seeing it, and I'll look at it and say, nah, I've gone too far, I have to reel this in. Because if you go too far, you can jeopardize alienating the audience. And I'm always trying to walk this fine line of pushing the boundaries and just getting to the line, stepping right over it, but maintaining some level of accessibility, mass accessibility if possible, because I think that it would be a disservice to the Art the Clown character, honestly, because I think he has such mass appeal potential. I think no matter what kind of horror fan you are, if you're a casual horror fan or you're really into extreme horror, elevated horror, I think everybody could appreciate this character just because he's so fun and checks so many wonderful horror boxes, and there's such an amazing performance that David brings to it where, you know, it's not worth alienating the audience, but at the same time, I think horror fans like to be tested and pushed, and if they can see things that they haven't quite seen before, or else what's the point, right? You don't want to just keep repeating the same movie. It should be my job as an artist to show you things that you haven't seen before. So it is striking the right balance.
This is for the actors. I guess that it has to be really funny to be in a film like this, to shoot a film like this. But have you ever feel sick or disturbed at any point filming the scenes, certain scenes?
The one.
Oh, there is the one,
out.
but there was also kind of a moment in part two is in the scene where I'm digging into Brooke's chest cavity. Damien built a whole cacophony of feeling type things in there. Just textures were plentiful of gooey and hard, and it was just like organs and bones and everything. And it was right before I had dinner that night too, so I'm just digging into Salmonella City over here, and I'm like, oh, this is gross. So it's a good thing we weren't running sound, because all you have heard is, oh God, oh, this is gross.
We were running sound. I have those.
Oh, so I just turned like Jerry Lewis, basically. Oh, Frank Laven, this is gross. And then I had to eat, and they leave me there, and I just got all this gunk all over my hand. I'm like, guys, don't leave me. I gotta eat. But in part three, there definitely was a moment where I almost tossed my cookies. And it's if you saw the movie, it's near the end of it with a very important character in the movie, and it entailed something that disgusts me in real life anyway. I can't handle vomit. I just don't like it. It's gross. It smells horrible. It just makes me nope, no thank you. And I tried my best to get out of having to do that. Because I sometimes have people that will fill in for my arm or leg or something like that while I'm in makeup, and I'm like, one of our crew guys, Steve Dalzell, sometimes does this for me, and I'm like, Steve, can Steve come in and be my arm? They're like, oh, no, Dave, your face is right in the shot. I'm like, oh, God, why? It was just bad. It was a bad day. And it was a hot house, and we had a lot of smells. Then this one, who was not even really in that part of the scene with me at that point. Well, you were in the scene, but you weren't going to be at that point in the scene.
I was literally holding her head.
Yeah. But yeah, you didn't have to be there. And she's eating this nasty, smelly bag of corn nuts, and just added, because I can't stand the smell of corn nuts, so it just made it worse. And they were using this cream of mushroom soup that I can't stand either. Yeah, is right. You know, she's like, this is just bad day for David.
But we have a lot of fun, and we do laugh a lot. But I don't know. I feel like when we're filming, I'm dissociating and I'm not in the moment, and I'm just like, okay, pick up the head, it's coming out of me, I'm doing this, it's very technical, so I'm not really, I don't get grossed out. I don't think I get weird. Like, he has me eating things, like he put me in
It sounds so horrible.
But no, I don't think I've ever gotten sick or like.
No, you're just the one causing other people to get sick.
Yeah, I'm always disturbing other people, I think, on set.
You're the sickening.
Yes, there I am.
Lady Caca.
That's our joke. No.
Oh, you came up with that, right?
No, it's Lady Gaga, it's Lady Caca.
This happens all the time on set. This is just how it always is.
Siempre. Uy.
Sí. Hola, Art es un constante tributo al cine mudo. Me gustaría saber cuáles han sido las principales influencias para su construcción y si David también tiene oportunidad de improvisar alguna vez en esas escenas. Gracias.
Most of the time I'm improvising. I have the script, and especially if it's not the kill. Usually the kills, Damien knows exactly what he wants. He's a master at scary and horrific. He knows exactly how he wants all this to look. He'll sometimes direct he knows what exact facial expression he wants from me. And we have a whole language between the two of us. He was like, more eyes or this, and I know exactly what he wants. But a lot of times he writes these scenes, like the costume shop scene in part 2, or like the bar scene in part 3, or like the mall as well, where it's just, he gives a little bit of description of what's going on, and then he's just like, Dave, just play and see what we come up with. And that's what I love about working with him. He's very open to ideas and letting actors experiment. So a lot of these times I'm just playing. I'm seeing we'll do multiple takes so many different ways, especially with the eyeglasses in part 2. I went down that whole entire rack of glasses that they just gave me, and I was just playing and doing different shtick with all the different glasses or props behind me, like whoopee cushions, fake poop, stuff like that. There's so much. There's probably a mini movie in just that of Art playing with things, and I love having that kind of freedom to experiment. What? Are you laughing about poop?
No, caca.
Yeah. Caca? Oh, this is how we're digressing.
How is it to be both costume and production designer? I'm curious, admire your journey and to know what for you are the pros and cons to take both departments, like the head.
I always share this because it's kind of hilarious, but for T2, a good friend of mine told me that Damien was looking for a costume designer, and I spoke with Damien, and he sent me the script. I had never heard of Terrifier or anything, and I read the script, and I was like, oh my God. Like, this is amazing, but wow. And I always share this because it's the truth. I declined the job twice. And it's because of the size budget and what he writes, like a $10 million movie, you know? So, but luckily he called a third time, and I signed on to be the costume designer. And later into the shoot, I think there was no set designer, and he had asked me to be production designer. Yeah. So
we never had one before, so I'm like, you could do it. we've made 3 movies without one.
So the other hilarious part, he asked me when we were working on Sienna's costume in Phil's basement, and I went into the bathroom and I Googled, what does a production designer do? And I read it and I came out and I was like, I could do that. And now it is my most hired profession. So kudos to Damien for saying that.
Kudos to you.
I have to give her like a round of applause. Her and her assistant Jackie. There was a moment in Terrifier 2 where we were supposed to be shooting Sienna's room, and it's the day before we're shooting, and it was just paint was just kind of drying on the walls. There was nothing in this room. I'm not even in the scene, but I started to have a panic attack. I'm like, how are we going to film this scene tomorrow in just like a few hours? And Olga and Jackie stayed up all night, and they made this amazingly stunning room that was Sienna's room, where, you know, it had her workbench where she's designing her clothes and costumes and everything. And there's so many details in this room, and they put all this together in like 12 hours. It was. They had no sleep. They stayed up all night doing this, and it was mind-blowing how much detail and love was put into that room. And I was blown away with just the talent of these 2 women.
I wasn't on T2 that often, so I didn't get to see her work, but I had the pleasure of working with her in the third. And there's a lot of really talented creatives, so by saying this, I'm not taking any away from anyone else, but you truly were the MVP. Like, she was literally not sleeping, because when we'd all be sleeping, Olga would be resetting. Like, there was so many intense, I mean, if you saw the movie, there's so many scenes, and she has to reset that, and then move location. And I mean, there's some of my favorite film sets that I've ever seen, like the bathroom scene. That was a pristine bathroom. It was clean. It was white, the walls. And then it had like, what, 2 looks? I don't know if you could speak to that, but that was my favorite.
There's a time jump, and we show that in the film. So that was a really fun canvas as well.
Yeah.
But the difference between Terrifier 2 and Terrifier 3 was Terrifier 2 was a core crew of like about 9 of us wearing multiple hats. So I was wearing multiple hats, but like look at Damien was directing and doing all the special effects. Like we were all putting our blood, sweat, and tears into it. With the bigger budget on Terrifier 3, we had teams, luckily. So I had an amazing, amazing art department of 6 people at its core with some assistants. I had 2 people on costumes, so that helped. But if you saw Terrifier 3, it was a much bigger world. There's many more locations. So I just really, the challenges are always time, money. And I live to create. So for me, even challenges are just like fuel. There's no canvas. I'll keep saying it. There's no canvas like this. And I'm very lucky that Damien trusts me with all of that.
Mi pregunta es si notasteis a la hora de hacer esta tercera película la presión de ya tener una base de fans muy importante de la segunda y de la primera película.
Yes. Always. Just personally as an artist, I want whatever I do next to be better, but especially for Terrifier 3 because 2 became successful. Now this one has the most eyes on it now. Not only that, 2 was such a surprise hit where most people never even saw part 1. Some people just went right into watching part 2, so they had no idea what they were walking into. So they went from 0 to 100. So now people expect these big kill scenes, and they expect to be grossed out. So now it's even harder for us to shock audiences. And like I said earlier, I could go very far and very distasteful and show really extreme, awful stuff. But again, I'm trying to walk that line. So I don't want to disappoint the audience. I want to push the gore as far as I can. But it's tricky. There's always going to be pressure. But you surround yourself with these amazingly talented people. They all care as much as I do about this project. We all put our heart and soul into this. And we care so much about the fan base that we really don't want to let you guys down because you guys have been there from the beginning. I keep saying this never had any money for marketing. All the publicity, even now with part 3, there's no real marketing behind this movie. It's everything that's coming out is real. Like people walking out, France, the rating, it's like they just received the worst rating since Saw in 2006. That's all real stuff. That's all we've ever had is organic marketing and word of mouth from fans. So we just want to keep doing what we've been doing and staying true to ourselves. And that kind of, once you get into it, that kind of alleviates the pressure because you kind of just become the artist, and that's all you can really do is be the best artist you can be. So,
yeah. English puede ser. Sí. Hi there. I was curious. There's such artistry associated with creating like gore effects and special effects right in camera. So when does VFX come in? How do you guys play with that? How do you complement it?
I set out to make, at this point, I'd say 98% practical, if not 100. I say not 100 because there's ways that I love to actually utilize VFX to augment the practicals now, which you can do. So let's say 20 years ago, if you were gonna maybe chop off somebody, a fake head, right? You'd have to, and you wanted the head to be articulated and alive. You'd build a mechanical head. That's never going to look as real as the human being. Now with digital, you can have that fake body that you can do horrible things to, but you can digitally put the actor's face onto that dummy now, where it's looking around, it's opening its mouth, and the audience doesn't know what they're looking at. And there's just little tricks like that. I'd love to say that this was 100% practical, but we had an incredible VFX team that came in and probably worked on over 200 shots with those little subtle augmentations that are so difficult. But if you watch it, you're going to think it's all practical because it's seamless. It's like an invisible art form. So it's just this wonderful toolbox that you have. You just need to know how to utilize these tools properly.
Hi, good afternoon. I missed the first 10 minutes. What's your inspiration for Terrifier 4?
Can't we enjoy 3? Can I sleep a while?
Sure. No pressure.
No, honestly, I don't want to think about it. There will be more. There will be more, though.
But you give a clue at the end of Terrifier 3.
Say that
Well, you give a clue of what we're going in Terrifier
A clue?
4. A clue.
For part 4?
Yes, like we're going to maybe underneath.
Well, when I wrote how many people have seen part 3 so far? Oh, okay.
Everybody else go.
So, I mean, spoiler alert. I mean, if you've seen the ending of 3, you know that there's clearly going to be more. This is probably like the darkest chapter for both our villain and our protagonists, where they end off. When I was writing part 2, I knew where the journey was going to end for Art the Clown and Sienna. So it's just a matter of, can I fit that? Before I reach that finale, is it going to be one more movie? Maybe it'll be 2, because I have a lot of wonderful ideas, especially, I just have notes of situations that I want to put Art the Clown in, or kill scenes that I want to accomplish. And then there's the actual story I know that I need to tell. So it just becomes a matter of how many movies do I need to get all those ideas in there before I reach that finale. So we'll find out. But ultimately, you will know when it comes to a close, and you will see this amazing finale between Sienna and Art the Clown.
Tenim temps per 2 preguntes més. 2 last questions. Okay.
First, thank you for the third movie, which I saw yesterday night, and was a blast.
Thank you.
And the other one, I know that this is a question that maybe you have to answer in the next few Q&As, and me and my girlfriend, we miss a lot the little girl. It's possibly to came in the next one. Thank you so much.
So the pale girl, I don't know if you could tell or you knew what was happening in the movie, but that entity possesses Victoria, so she could live in reality in this movie. So I can always bring that character back, because we just opened up this world of the supernatural, and there's so many visions and premonitions and all these nightmares, so anything's possible to bring. I love that character. Also, there's things I haven't touched upon yet with that character, especially we've alluded to it a little bit in part 2 when Jonathan's flipping through the journal, and you see an article about who that little girl was. So we're going to circle back to that at some point as well. So again, I like to say I approach this franchise more like a mini-series as opposed to individual movies. So I think if people watch it that way, they'll be more satisfied instead of frustrated, just trusting me that you're going to get the whole story eventually when I'm ready for it to be finished, because I don't want to. That's never how any of these franchises have been approached ever. They make basically one movie at a time. They don't have an overall goal or overall story. It's really just about, this character's popular, let's keep bringing this character back to make money. And then they kind of just get lost and they meander. That's why you see 8 movies with 2 characters, and then all of a sudden those characters get killed off all of a sudden, or they just disappear, their storyline ends, or you have 3 timelines now. And you're like, what is the overall point of this story? Why did I put so much emotion into this character's journey when there's really no reason for this character to even exist? So I just don't want to fall into that trap. So I do have a plan, believe it or not.
Y la última.
Hi. Can you talk, for Damien the question, can you talk a bit about creating gore effects with no money? Like when you're a starter, and how do you, some tips for people that are starting?
The first Terrifier, I'd say we had maybe $10,000 to create all of the special effects. I think we had a $35,000 budget for the entire movie, so I'd say about $10,000 went to the materials. So that's one of the reasons why I was able to make that movie, because I do the special makeup effects myself. Obviously, I didn't pay myself, so every nickel went into the special effect, the materials needed to do that. I guess when you've been doing it for so long, not that at that point I was a professional, I was always an amateur filmmaker, amateur makeup effects artist, but I'd still been doing it for so long, doing it since I'm 12, 13 years old, where you start to realize shortcuts and how not to waste materials, and if you need how to whip up fake blood faster if you start running out, things, with water and food dyes and things like that in a pinch, or this is one of the reasons why for part 3 I was able to hire a studio and a professional for the first time, Hollywood studio, to come in. And on one level, they hated me because of how much I was making them do. But on the other, they loved working with me because I was a makeup effects artist and I had a shorthand, and I could tell them, they're used to working with directors who have no idea how practical effects work. So they might have them make an entire body, 360, that takes 20 people to work on over the course of 2 months, and then they shoot the face and nothing else. Me, I know exactly how I'm going to shoot it, and I say, if I need you to make a head, I only need this portion of the head. You don't have to do anything over here. You can leave the hair off here and everything. And you could save so much money that way when you know exactly how these illusions should work or how they are executed, how to shoot them. So it's just a matter of getting your hands on the materials, studying them, studying how they work, watching videos on all these makeup artists behind the scenes. So yeah, there's lots of tricks. Thank you.
Ok, doncs gràcies a tots per venir i un aplaudiment per ells 4.
Oh, thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, guys.